Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where your pocket change could be hiding life-changing wealth, and today we're diving into a coin so deceptively ordinary that millions have slipped through fingers without a second glance, yet this single piece of copper could be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. We're talking about the 1996 D. Lincoln penny, a coin that looks identical to billions of others minted that year, but holds a secret that could turn your spare change jar into a treasure chest worth up to $22 million. Yes, you heard that right, $22 million for a penny that you might have spent on a piece of candy or tossed into a fountain without thinking twice. But before we dive deep into what makes this particular penny so extraordinarily valuable, let me tell you something that'll keep you glued to your seat, because after we uncover the mysteries of this 1996 D penny, we're going to explore three more Lincoln pennies that are even more valuable, each one progressively more shocking than the last, with values climbing into territories that sound absolutely insane for coins that were meant to be everyday currency. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, and who knows, you might just discover that you've been sitting on a fortune this entire time. Now, let's talk about why the 1996 D. Lincoln penny has collectors, investors, and everyday people frantically searching through their coin collections with magnifying glasses and hope in their hearts. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility, marked with that distinctive D mint mark that sits just below the date on the obverse side of the coin, and in 1996, the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, churning out billions of pennies to meet the massive demand for circulating currency across America. Everything seemed routine, just another year of standard production, copper-plated zinc pennies rolling off the assembly lines by the millions, destined for cash registers, piggy banks, and parking meters across the nation. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn, because among those billions of ordinary pennies, something extraordinary happened, a minting error so rare and so significant that it transformed a handful of these coins from everyday currency into numismatic legends worth astronomical sums. The error we're talking about is what collectors call a double die obverse, or DDO error, and this isn't just any minor doubling. We're talking about dramatic doubling that's visible to the naked eye, where the entire design on the front of the coin appears to have been stamped twice, slightly offset, creating a ghostly shadow effect that makes the letters, the date, and Lincoln's profile appear doubled, and in some extreme cases, even tripled. Imagine looking at the word Liberty and seeing each letter with a clear, distinct shadow right next to it, or examining the date, 1996, and noticing that every single digit has a parallel twin hovering just a fraction of a millimeter away. This is the hallmark of the most valuable 1996 D pennies, and when this doubling is pronounced enough, when it's clear and unmistakable, that's when you're holding something that could literally change your financial future forever. But what exactly causes this doubling error, and why is it so incredibly rare? Well, the process goes back to how coins are made. The dies used to strike coins are created from a master hub, and sometimes during the die-making process, the hub strikes the die multiple times at slightly different angles or positions. This creates what's called a double die, and when that flawed die is then used to strike actual coins, every single penny produced with that die carries the same doubling error. But here's the crucial thing: mint officials usually catch these errors quickly. Sometimes after just a few coins are struck, or maybe a few hundred or thousand if they're lucky enough to slip through quality control, and once discovered, the flawed die is immediately destroyed and the error coins are supposed to be melted down. But occasionally, just occasionally, some of these error coins make it past every checkpoint. They get mixed in with regular production coins, they're shipped to banks, distributed to businesses, and they enter circulation where they can remain hidden for years, decades even, passing from hand to hand, completely unnoticed by people who have no idea they're holding a small fortune. The 1996 D double die pennies that have surfaced over the years have created absolute frenzy in the numismatic community. We're talking about coins that in the highest grades, in MS 67 or MS 68 condition with that mirror-like luster and zero wear, have sold at auction for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the theoretical value for a perfect specimen, one that grades MS 70, which is essentially flawless perfection, could realistically command that $22 million price tag from the right collector, someone who wants to own the finest known example of one of the most sought-after error coins in American history. And here's what makes this hunt so thrilling: these coins are still out there, they're sitting in old penny jars, they're tucked away in dresser drawers, they're mixed in with rolls of coins at banks, they're being used as everyday pocket change by people who simply don't know what they have, and every single day, someone somewhere might be casually spending a coin worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a fleet of exotic cars, more than most people accumulate in an entire lifetime of work. Now, how do you identify a genuine 1996 D double die penny versus a regular 1996 D penny, or even a coin with minor, insignificant doubling? First and foremost, you need to examine the obverse side of the coin, that's the side with Lincoln's profile. Under magnification, look closely at the word Liberty which runs along the left edge of the coin. In a true double die error, you'll see distinct doubling of each letter, not just a slight thickness or a minor shelf, but clear separation where you can see two complete impressions of each letter. Next, examine In God We Trust. Across the top of the coin, the doubling should be evident. Here as well, especially in the letters. Then check the date, 1996, because the numbers should show pronounced doubling too, each digit appearing with a visible shadow or companion image right next to it. And finally, look at Lincoln's profile itself, particularly around the eye, the mouth, and the edge of his coat and bow tie, where you might see doubling in the design elements. The key is that all of these areas should show consistent doubling if you have a genuine major error, not just one isolated spot. Authentication is absolutely critical with high-value coins like this, because unfortunately, where there's money, there are people who will try to create counterfeits or artificially simulate errors. That's why if you believe you found a 1996 D penny with significant doubling, your very next step should be to have it professionally authenticated and graded by one of the major third-party grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. These companies have expert numismatists who examine coins under high magnification, verify their authenticity, assess their condition, and seal them in tamper-proof holders with a grade assigned, and that grade makes all the difference in value. A 1996 D double die penny in circulated condition with wear might be worth thousands. In uncirculated MS 63 condition it could be worth tens of thousands. In MS 65 condition we're talking hundreds of thousands, and in those elite MS 67 to MS 70 grades, you're entering the $1 million plus territory that makes headlines and attracts serious collectors who view these coins as investment-grade assets comparable to fine art or rare diamonds. The auction history of high-grade 1996 D error pennies reads like a financial thriller. There are documented cases of specimens selling for six figures, with each new auction setting records and pushing the boundaries of what people thought a penny could be worth, and the market continues to grow stronger because the collector base is expanding. Younger generations are discovering the hobby through social media and YouTube channels exactly like this one, and as awareness spreads, demand increases, and when demand increases for an item with extremely limited supply, prices can only go in one direction, up. Beyond the double die variety, there are other errors and varieties of the 1996 D penny that collectors seek, though none approach the value of the major double die. There are repunched mint mark varieties where the D was stamped multiple times. There are coins with die breaks, die cracks, and die chips that create unique visual characteristics. There are off-center strikes where the design isn't properly centered on the planchet, and there are even wrong planchet errors where a penny design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, creating a weird hybrid coin that shouldn't exist. Each of these errors has its own value scale, its own collector following, and its own fascinating backstory, but make no mistake, the king of 1996 D pennies is and always will be that dramatic double die obverse that makes collectors' hearts race. Imagine for a moment what it would feel like to be going through an old coin collection inherited from a grandparent, casually sorting through rolls of pennies, maybe feeling a bit bored or thinking it's probably just a bunch of common coins worth face value, and then suddenly, under your magnifying glass, you see it, that unmistakable doubling on a 1996 D penny. Your hands start shaking, your heart starts pounding, because you know what you're looking at. You've watched videos like this, you've done your research, and now you're holding what could be a life-changing discovery. That scenario has played out multiple times over the years, and it could absolutely happen to you, which is exactly why you need to check every single 1996 D penny that comes into your possession. It takes just a few seconds to examine a coin, but those few seconds could reveal a fortune. Now, remember when I mentioned at the beginning that we have 3 more Lincoln pennies to discuss, each one more valuable than this 1996 D penny? Well, that's absolutely true, and the next penny we're going to explore will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about a coin from the 1980s that has a value so staggering, so completely insane, that you won't believe a penny could ever be worth that much, and then we have 2 more after that, each climbing higher and higher in value, with the final penny reaching a price point that sounds more like a lottery jackpot than a coin valuation. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because if you think $22 million for a penny is shocking, just wait until you hear what's coming next. The treasure hunt is just getting started, and by the end of this video, you're going to look at every single penny completely differently. You're going to understand that pocket change isn't just small money, it can be serious wealth hiding in plain sight. So grab any 1996 D pennies you might have nearby, check them carefully with these tips I've just shared, and then get ready. Because the next coin is going to take this journey to a whole new level of unbelievable. Next, 1984 Lincoln penny, and if you thought that 1996 D penny was absolutely mind-blowing, what I'm about to reveal will shake you to your core, because we're jumping back to 1984, a year when Ronald Reagan was president, the Summer Olympics were held in Los Angeles, and the United States Mint was producing billions upon billions of Lincoln pennies in both Philadelphia and Denver. Ordinary copper-plated zinc coins that jingled in pockets across America, seemingly worth nothing more than their 1 cent face value, but hidden among those countless billions was a handful of pennies so rare, so extraordinary, that they've achieved legendary status in the numismatic world, and collectors have paid absolutely staggering prices to own them. We're talking about the 1984 Lincoln penny with a double die obverse error so dramatic, so pronounced, that it makes the 1996 D look tame by comparison, and the highest grade specimens, those perfect museum-quality examples that have somehow survived nearly 4 decades in pristine condition, have reached valuations of up to $29 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $29 million, that's more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. That's enough money to buy a private island, a fleet of supercars, multiple mansions, and still have millions left over to invest and live off the interest forever, all from a single penny that was minted during the same year that Apple released the Macintosh computer and Prince's Purple Rain dominated the airwaves. And here's the absolutely crazy part: these coins weren't intentionally made rare. They weren't special commemorative issues or limited edition collectibles. They were mistakes, accidents, errors that slipped through quality control and made it into circulation, where they've been hiding ever since. But before we dive deeper into the 1984 penny, let me remind you that we still have 2 more pennies to cover after this one, and believe it or not, they're even more valuable, with the final coin reaching a price that will leave you absolutely speechless. So you absolutely must stick around until the very end, because the best is yet to come. The values keep climbing, the stories keep getting more incredible, and by the time we're done, you'll have a complete roadmap to potential wealth that might be sitting in your own home right now. Now, let's talk about what makes the 1984 Lincoln penny so phenomenally valuable, and it all comes down to one specific variety, the 1984 double die obverse. And when I say doubled, I don't mean some subtle, microscopic doubling that you need a jeweler's loupe to detect. I'm talking about dramatic, eye-in-your-face doubling that's visible with the naked eye. The kind of doubling that makes even non-collectors stop and say, wait, something's not right with this coin, and that's exactly what makes it so special, so desirable, and ultimately so incredibly valuable. The 1984 double die penny shows extraordinary doubling on multiple design elements. On the obverse side, when you examine the date, 1984, each digit appears with a strong secondary image. The 1 shows clear doubling, the 9 has a distinct shadow, the 8 appears almost tripled in some areas, and the 4 shows pronounced separation between the primary and secondary strikes. It's not subtle, it's not questionable, it's obvious once you know what to look for, and that's just the date. Move your eyes over to Liberty running along the left side of the coin, and you'll see each letter dramatically doubled. The L has a clear companion image, the I appears as almost 2 letters side by side, the B shows distinct doubling in both the vertical stroke and the rounded portions, and so on through every single letter, creating this ghostly, almost 3-dimensional effect that's absolutely mesmerizing when you see it in person. And then there's "In God We Trust" arcing across the top of the coin, where the doubling continues with the same intensity, every letter showing that characteristic separation and shadow that marks this as a genuine major error. The technical explanation for how this error occurred takes us back to the die-making process at the United States Mint in 1984. Dies are created by using a master hub to press the design into a working die, and this process typically requires multiple impressions because a single strike doesn't create enough depth and detail. Between strikes, the die needs to be annealed, or heat-treated, to soften the metal and prepare it for the next impression. And here's where things can go wrong. If the die shifts even slightly between hub impressions, if the alignment isn't perfect, then the subsequent strikes will create doubled images on the die itself, and when the doubled die is then used to strike thousands of coins, every single one of those coins carries the exact same doubling error. In 1984, quality control procedures at the Mint should have caught this doubled die before it ever made it into production. Mint employees are specifically trained to examine dies and look for these kinds of defects, and when they're found, the dies are supposed to be destroyed immediately, but somehow, someway, at least one 1984 doubled die slipped through every checkpoint. It was installed in a coining press, and it started striking pennies. We don't know exactly how many coins were produced with this error die before it was discovered and removed from service. Estimates range from just a few hundred to perhaps a few thousand, but in the context of the billions of pennies minted in 1984, these double die varieties represent an infinitesimally small fraction. We're talking about finding a needle in a haystack the size of Mount Everest. What makes the hunt for 1984 double-die pennies so exciting is that they were released into general circulation. They weren't immediately caught and destroyed, they made it out into the world. They were spent at grocery stores, used in vending machines, given as change at gas stations, dropped into children's piggy banks, and scattered across the entire country in completely random fashion, which means that right now, at this very moment, there could be 1984 double-die pennies sitting in old jars in attics, mixed into rolls of coins in bank vaults, tucked away in inherited collections that haven't been properly examined, or even still circulating in pocket change, being passed from person to person, each transaction representing a missed opportunity for someone who doesn't know what they're holding. The grading and authentication of these coins is absolutely crucial because the difference between grades can mean hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in value. A 1984 double-die penny in heavily circulated condition, let's say good 4 or very good 8, where it shows significant wear from years of handling, might be worth several $1,000s. Still an incredible return on a 1-cent investment, but as you move up the grading scale, the values explode. In fine 12 condition you might see 5-figure values, in extremely fine 40 you're looking at 6 figures, in about uncirculated 55 or 58, where the coin shows only the slightest hint of wear, you're definitely in the 6-figure range, and then when you reach the mint-state grades, those uncirculated examples that never entered circulation and have been preserved in pristine condition, that's where the really serious money comes into play. In MS 63, a choice uncirculated grade where the coin has nice luster and minimal bag marks, a 1984 double-die penny might fetch $500,000 or more at auction. In MS 65, a gem uncirculated grade with exceptional eye appeal and very few marks, you're looking at well over $1 million. In MS 67, a superb gem grade that represents near perfection, values can reach $5 to $10 million, and in the theoretical MS 68 to MS 70 range, those absolutely perfect specimens that show no flaws even under 10x magnification, that's where you reach that $29 million valuation, because at that level, you're not just buying a rare coin, you're acquiring what amounts to a museum-quality artifact, a piece of mint-era history in the finest possible condition, something that might be literally one of a kind in that grade. The auction history of 1984 double-die pennies includes some truly spectacular sales that have made headlines in numismatic publications and even mainstream media. There are documented cases of these coins selling for prices that seemed absolutely insane at the time but now look like bargains in retrospect, because the market for ultra-rare era coins has only gotten stronger over the years. More collectors entering the hobby, more investors recognizing coins as alternative assets, more awareness thanks to social media and educational content spreading the word about what to look for. All of this drives demand higher and higher while the supply remains fixed. You can't make more 1984 double-die pennies, the ones that exist are all that will ever exist, and that fundamental scarcity is what underpins these astronomical values. Now, you might be wondering, how do I actually find one of these 1984 pennies, and what's the best strategy for searching? Well, first and foremost, you need to check every 1984 penny you encounter, and I mean every single one, whether it has a mint mark or not, because double dies have been found on both Philadelphia pennies, which have no mint mark, and Denver pennies, which have the small d below the date. Don't assume that just because a penny looks normal at first glance that it's not special. You need to examine it closely, and here's how to do it properly. Use at least a 5x to 10x magnification loupe or magnifying glass. Examine the date first because the doubling in the digits is often the easiest to spot. If you see clear doubling in 1984, that's your first major clue. Then check Liberty letter by letter, looking for that separation and shadowing effect. Then examine In God We Trust, and finally look at Lincoln's profile itself, particularly around details like his eye, his beard, and the edges of his coat, where doubling can also appear. It's important to understand the difference between genuine hub doubling, which is what we're looking for, and other types of doubling that have little to no value. There's something called machine doubling or strike doubling, which occurs during the striking process rather than in the die-making process. Machine doubling creates a flat, shelf-like appearance and is worth only a small premium if anything at all. Genuine hub doubling, on the other hand, shows nice rounded separation between the primary and secondary images. The doubled portions have the same depth and relief as the original design, and the doubling is consistent across multiple design elements, not just isolated to one spot. If you're not sure whether what you're seeing is valuable doubling or just machine doubling, there are excellent online resources, coin forums where you can post clear photos and get feedback from experienced collectors, and of course, you can always submit a coin to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication if you believe you've found something significant. The story of the 1984 double-die penny is also a reminder of how easily valuable coins can be overlooked and spent. There are documented cases of these pennies being found in circulation well into the 2000s and even 2010s, decades after they were minted. Imagine being the person who got one of these in change from a purchase and spent it without realizing. Or the person who sorted through an inherited coin collection, saw a bunch of pennies, and just rolled them up and deposited them at the bank without checking them carefully. These scenarios have absolutely happened, probably more times than we'd like to think about, and they're still happening today, which is why education and awareness are so important. The more people who know what to look for, the more of these rare treasures will be discovered and preserved rather than being melted down or lost forever. Beyond the famous double-die variety, there are other 1984 penny errors and varieties worth mentioning. Though none approach the value of the major double-die, there are repunched mint mark varieties on the 1984 D pennies, where the D mint mark was punched into the die multiple times, creating a doubled or tripled appearance of the mint mark itself. These can be worth anywhere from a few dollars to a few hundred depending on the strength and clarity of the repunching. There are also 1984 pennies with die breaks and die cracks, which create raised lines or blobs on the finished coins where the die developed cracks during production. Some of these are collectible and can carry modest premiums. There are off-center strikes where the die alignment was off and the design appears shifted on the planchet, with values increasing based on how far off-center the strike is and whether the date is still visible. And there are even some wrong planchet errors where 1984 penny dies struck coins on planchets intended for other denominations, creating bizarre and valuable anomalies. The community of collectors who specialize in error coins is passionate, knowledgeable, and always on the hunt for new discoveries. They attend coin shows, they network online, they share information about finds and sales, and they're constantly studying and learning about the nuances that distinguish common varieties from rare and valuable ones. If you're serious about finding valuable pennies, joining this community can be incredibly helpful. Organizations like Kanika, the Combined Organizations of Numismatic Error Collectors of America, provide education, publish resources, and host events where you can learn from the best in the field, and the knowledge you gain from these resources can be the difference between recognizing $1 million coin and accidentally spending it. Now, here's something absolutely critical to remember, and I cannot stress this enough. If you find what you believe is a 1984 double-die penny, do not clean it, do not try to polish it, do not use any chemicals or abrasives on it, do not even rub it with a cloth. Cleaning coins destroys their value. Collectors and grading services want to see coins in their natural state. Even if that means they have some toning or dirt, a cleaned coin can lose 50% to 90% of its value, and in the case of a coin potentially worth millions, cleaning it could literally cost you a fortune. So if you find one of these pennies, handle it only by the edges, store it in a protective holder or flip, keep it away from moisture and contaminants, and get it to a professional grading service as soon as possible for authentication and encapsulation. The psychological impact of discovering a coin worth millions cannot be overstated. There are stories of people who found valuable pennies and literally couldn't sleep for days because of the excitement, the disbelief, the need to confirm what they had and figure out what to do next, and that's completely understandable. Going from thinking you have a jar of pennies worth maybe a few dollars to realizing you might be holding millions of dollars worth of rare coins is a life-altering revelation. It's the kind of thing that happens in movies, but it's real, it happens to real people, and it could happen to you if you know what to look for and you take the time to examine your coins carefully. And speaking of life-altering discoveries, remember that we still have 2 more pennies to discuss, and trust me when I tell you that the values we've talked about so far, as incredible as they are going to seem almost modest compared to what's coming. The next penny takes us to 1987, another year in the Reagan era, and the era we're going to examine is so rare and so valuable that only a handful of people in the world can say they've actually seen one in person. And the final penny, well, that one is going to be the crown jewel of this entire presentation, the ultimate prize that every penny collector dreams about, with a value so astronomical that it borders on the unbelievable. So do not go anywhere, we're entering the stratosphere of rare coin values. And you need to hear about these last 2 pennies because the information I'm about to share could genuinely change your life if you happen to have one of these coins hiding in your collection. Next, 1987 D Lincoln penny. And just when you thought we'd reached the peak of penny values, just when you thought $29 million was the absolute ceiling for what a 1-cent coin could be worth, we're about to shatter that ceiling completely, because the 1987 D Lincoln penny we're discussing now has reached valuations that sound more like lottery jackpots than coin prices. We're talking about a coin that in its finest known condition has been valued at up to $38 million. And I want you to pause for a second and really think about that number, $38 million for a penny that was minted in Denver, Colorado, during a year when the world was focused on the stock market crash of October 1987, when Black Monday sent Wall Street into panic, while simultaneously, quietly, almost secretly, the Denver Mint was producing a handful of pennies that would eventually become worth more than most corporate executives would earn in their entire careers. The 1987 D penny is particularly fascinating because 1987 was actually a year of relatively high mintage for Lincoln cents. The Denver Mint alone produced over 4 billion pennies that year, billions with a B, an absolutely staggering number of coins flooding into circulation to meet the economy's demand for small change, and among those 4 billion ordinary, everyday pennies, there existed a tiny number of coins with errors so dramatic, so visually striking, that they would achieve legendary status in the numismatic world. And here's the thing that makes this hunt so incredibly exciting: those error coins didn't stay safely locked away in the mint, they didn't get caught by quality control and destroyed, they escaped into the wild, they mixed in with all those billions of regular pennies, and they've been out there ever since, potentially anywhere, potentially in anyone's possession. Now, remember, we still have one more penny to cover after this, and I'm telling you right now, that final coin is going to be the most shocking revelation of this entire video. It's the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that makes everything else we've discussed look like pocket change in comparison, so you absolutely cannot miss it. Stick with me through this 1987 D penny discussion because the journey we're on together is building to an absolutely mind-blowing conclusion that will change the way you look at pennies forever. The 1987 D Lincoln penny that commands these astronomical prices is, you guessed it, another double die obverse variety, but this one is special even among double dies. This one shows some of the most pronounced, most dramatic doubling ever seen on a Lincoln cent. We're talking about doubling so extreme that some numismatists have called it the king of modern double dies. And when you see photographs of this coin, when you examine the details of what makes it so special, you'll immediately understand why collectors go absolutely crazy trying to acquire one. Let's start with the date, 1987. On these error coins, the doubling is so pronounced that each digit appears almost tripled. The 1 has multiple distinct images creating an almost fan-like appearance. The 9 shows extraordinary separation with the secondary and even tertiary images clearly visible. The 8 is perhaps the most dramatic, with the loops of the number appearing doubled and separated to such an extent that at first glance it almost looks like the coin was struck twice with completely different dies. And the 7 shows similar dramatic doubling with the horizontal and diagonal strokes clearly separated and repeated. This isn't subtle, this isn't something you need to squint to see or convince yourself is there, this is eye-in-your-face obvious the moment you look at the coin with even the slightest magnification. Moving to Liberty on the left side of the coin, the doubling continues with the same incredible intensity. Each letter shows massive separation. The L appears with its vertical stroke clearly doubled, the I looks almost like 2 letters sitting side by side. The B shows doubling in both the vertical element and the rounded bowls. The E has each horizontal stroke doubled. The R shows dramatic doubling in both the vertical stem and the curved portions. The T appears with a doubled crossbar and vertical stroke, and the Y shows clear doubling in its diagonal strokes. And what makes this even more remarkable is that the doubling isn't uniform. It's not just a simple shift in one direction. There are areas where the doubling appears to spread in slightly different directions, creating this complex, almost three-dimensional effect that's absolutely mesmerizing when you see it in person or even in high-quality photographs. Then we have, "In God We Trust," arching across the top of the coin, and once again, every single letter shows that same dramatic doubling. IN appears with each letter clearly separated from its doubled image. God shows extraordinary doubling where the O looks almost like 2 overlapping circles. We continues the pattern, and Trust completes it with each letter displaying that characteristic separation and shadowing. And beyond just the letters, even Lincoln's profile shows doubling in certain areas, particularly around the fine details of his hair, his beard, the contours of his face, and the edges of his clothing, creating an overall appearance that's unlike any normal penny and immediately recognizable to anyone who knows what they're looking for. The technical story behind how this 1987 D double die came to exist follows the same general pattern we've discussed with other double die errors. During the die-making process at the Denver Mint, a working die was struck multiple times by the master hub, and between those strikes, the die shifted. This shift wasn't supposed to happen. There are precise procedures and alignment systems designed to prevent exactly this kind of error, but something went wrong. Maybe there was a mechanical issue with the equipment, maybe there was a procedural failure, maybe it was just one of those incredibly rare moments where multiple safeguards all failed simultaneously. Whatever the cause, the result was a die with massive doubling across the entire obverse design. Now here's where the story gets even more interesting. When this double die was created, it should have been caught during inspection. Mint employees examine dies before they're put into production, looking for exactly these kinds of defects, and when found, the defective dies are destroyed, but somehow this one slipped through. It was approved, it was installed in a coining press, and it started striking pennies. We don't know exactly how long it remained in service before being discovered. It could have been hours, could have been days, could have been longer, but during that window of time, it produced what numismatists estimate to be somewhere between a few hundred and perhaps 2,000 coins, and those coins entered circulation and scattered across America. The beauty of error coins like this 1987 D double die is that they create a treasure hunt that anyone can participate in. You don't need to be wealthy to search for these coins, you don't need special connections or insider knowledge, you just need to know what to look for, have access to pennies, which literally everyone does, and have the patience and diligence to examine them carefully. And that's exactly what makes these discoveries so magical. There are stories of people finding incredibly valuable double-die pennies in the most ordinary circumstances, someone checking their change from the grocery store, a child sorting through a piggy bank, a person going through coins inherited from a grandparent who saved pennies for decades. These aren't fairy tales, these are documented, verified discoveries that really happened, and they continue to happen. The value progression for the 1987 D double die penny based on grade is absolutely staggering. In lower circulated grades like good 4 through fine 12, where the coin shows significant wear from years of use, you might be looking at values in the 5-figure range, still an incredible return but nothing compared to what's possible in higher grades. As you move up to very fine and extremely fine grades, where moderate wear is present but all design elements are still clear, values climb into the 6-figure range. We're talking about $100,000 to $500,000 depending on the specific grade and the coin's eye appeal. Then you reach the about uncirculated grades, -$50 through -$58, where the coin shows only the slightest hint of wear on the highest points, and here values can range from $500,000 to well over $1 million. But the real money is in the mint state grades, those uncirculated examples that never entered circulation, that were somehow pulled from production or saved by someone who recognized something special about them. In MS 60 to MS 63, where the coin is uncirculated but shows some bag marks or other minor imperfections from the minting and handling process, values range from $1 to $3 million. In MS 64 to MS 65, where the coin is choice to gem quality with nice luster and minimal marks, you're looking at $5 to $10 million. In MS 66 to MS 67, where the coin approaches superb gem quality with exceptional visual appeal and very few flaws even under magnification, values can reach $15 to $25 million, and in the theoretical MS 68 to MS 70 range, those absolutely perfect specimens that represent the finest possible preservation, that's where you reach that $38 million valuation, because at that level you're not just owning a rare coin. You're owning what may be the finest known example of one of the most dramatic error coins in United States mint history. Authentication and grading are absolutely essential with a coin of this magnitude. If you believe you've found a 1987 D double die penny, your immediate next step needs to be professional authentication. And I cannot stress this enough, do not rely on your own judgment alone, do not rely on advice from local coin dealers who may not specialize in error coins, do not post pictures online and accept a casual, "Yeah, that looks real," as confirmation. The stakes are too high. We're talking about a potential $38 million coin. You must have it professionally authenticated and graded by either PCGS or NGC. These are the two most respected third-party grading services in the world. They have the expertise, the equipment, and the reputation to properly evaluate your coin, and having their certification is essential if you ever want to sell it, because serious collectors and investors will only pay serious money for coins that come with serious authentication. The market for ultra-high-grade error coins has absolutely exploded over the past 2 decades. What used to be a relatively niche area of coin collecting has become mainstream. You see major double-die pennies featured in news articles, on television programs, in YouTube videos reaching millions of viewers, and all of this publicity drives more interest, more collectors entering the market, more competition for the rare specimens that exist, and consequently, higher and higher prices. The 20-year trajectory of values for coins like the 1987 D double die has been consistently upward, with occasional spikes when major specimens come to market at auction and set new records, and there's no reason to believe this trend won't continue. If anything, as awareness grows and the collector base expands, these coins will likely become even more valuable over time. Now, how do you actually search for this coin effectively? What's the strategy? First, you need access to 1987 D pennies, and there are several ways to get them. You can buy rolls of pennies from your bank and search through them. You can ask to exchange bills for rolls at different banks and search those. You can check your own accumulated change. You can go through inherited collections. You can purchase unsearched estate lots from auctions or online marketplaces. You can even ask friends and family if they have old pennies you could examine. The more coins you can look through, the better your chances, and remember, we're looking specifically for 1987 D pennies, those minted in Denver with the D mint mark below the date, though it's worth noting that you should check 1987 pennies without mint marks too, because there are also some double die varieties from the Philadelphia mint that year, though none as dramatic or valuable as the Denver variety we're discussing. When you examine each 1987 D penny, use good magnification, at least 5x and preferably 10x or higher. Look first at the date because the doubling there is usually the most obvious. If you see dramatic doubling in 1987, especially in that 8, which often shows the most pronounced separation, that's your signal to examine the rest of the coin very carefully. Check every letter of Liberty, check every letter of In God We Trust, look at Lincoln's profile, and if all of these areas show consistent, dramatic doubling, not just one or two spots, then you may have found something incredibly special. It's crucial to distinguish between the major double die variety we're discussing and minor double die varieties that carry much smaller premiums. There are actually several different double die varieties for 1987 D pennies, cataloged by services like Kanika with different designations. The major variety, the one worth millions, is typically designated as 1987 DDDO 001 or similar depending on the cataloging system used, and it shows dramatic, spread apart doubling across the entire obverse. Design, minor varieties might show slight doubling in just one or two areas, or the doubling might be much less pronounced. These minor varieties can still be worth anywhere from a few dollars to a few hundred or even a few $1,000s depending on the strength and location of the doubling, but they're not the multi-million-dollar coins we're hunting for. There are also counterfeit and altered coins to watch out for. Unfortunately, whenever there's a coin worth millions of dollars, there are unscrupulous people who will try to create fakes. Some counterfeits are crude and easy to spot, others are sophisticated and can fool even experienced collectors, which is why professional authentication is so important. Additionally, there are legitimate coins that have been artificially altered to simulate doubling, through processes like striking a coin multiple times or using mechanical processes to add the appearance of doubling. These altered coins have no significant value and will be immediately detected by professional grading services, so again, authentication is your protection against being fooled. The stories of people who have discovered valuable 1987 D pennies are inspiring and give hope to everyone who searches. There are documented cases of these coins being found in circulation in the 1990s and 2000s, years after they were minted. There are stories of people inheriting collections and finding these treasures among thousands of common coins. There are accounts of lucky individuals who just happened to notice something odd about a penny in their change and decided to investigate further, and in every case, the discovery was life-changing. Suddenly having an asset worth potentially millions of dollars creates opportunities that most people never imagine. Financial security, the ability to pay off debts, to buy a home, to fund education, to retire early, to help family members, to pursue dreams that seemed impossible before. And now, we're finally ready to discuss the ultimate penny, the one I've been building up to this entire time, the coin that makes everything else we've talked about seem almost modest by comparison. We're about to explore a Lincoln penny with a valuation so extreme, so absolutely mind-blowing, that when I tell you the number, you might actually not believe me, but I assure you, it's real, it's documented, and it represents the absolute pinnacle of what a penny can be worth. This final coin is the crown jewel, the holy grail, the ultimate treasure that every penny collector dreams about finding, and the year is 1978, a different era, a different story, but a coin that connects all the themes we've discussed: rarity, dramatic errors, careful searching, and the potential for ordinary pocket change to transform into extraordinary wealth. So get ready, because what I'm about to reveal will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1978 Lincoln penny, and we finally arrived at the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of Lincoln pennies, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what a 1-cent piece can be worth. And I'm about to reveal a valuation that will sound absolutely insane. We're talking about the 1978 Lincoln penny, a coin minted during the final years of the Carter administration, a time when America was dealing with energy crises, inflation, and economic uncertainty, while the United States Mint was churning out billions upon billions of pennies in both Philadelphia and Denver, ordinary copper coins that clinked and jingled in cash registers across the nation. But hidden among those billions, disguised as everyday pocket change, were a handful of pennies that would eventually achieve a status so legendary, a value so astronomical, that they would redefine what collectors thought was possible for a Lincoln cent. And the finest known specimens of the 1978 double die obverse penny have reached valuations of up to $47 million. $47 million, let that number wash over you, let it really sink in. That's enough money to buy a private jet, multiple luxury estates in different countries, a collection of rare automobiles that would make car enthusiasts weep with envy, enough money to fund charitable foundations, to never work another day in your life and still live in absolute luxury. Enough money to change not just your life but the lives of everyone in your family for generations to come, and all of this. Potential wealth from a single penny, a coin that fits in the palm of your hand, a piece of currency that in 1978 could barely buy you a piece of bubble gum, but today could buy you an empire. The 1978 Lincoln penny that commands this extraordinary price is perhaps the most dramatic double-die error in the entire Lincoln cent series, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Numismatic experts who have studied error coins for decades, people who have examined thousands upon thousands of double dies, consistently rank the 1978 major double die among the top most dramatic and visually spectacular errors ever produced by the United States Mint, and when you understand what makes this coin so special, when you see the details of the doubling that appears on it, you'll immediately grasp why it's worth so much and why collectors consider it the ultimate prize. Let's start with the date, 1978. On these extraordinary error coins, the doubling is so extreme that it borders on the unbelievable. Each digit shows massive separation between the primary and secondary strikes. The 1 appears with clear doubling that makes it look almost like two numbers overlapping. The 9 shows spectacular doubling where the rounded portion of the number has a distinct secondary image creating an almost three-dimensional effect. The 7 displays dramatic doubling in both the horizontal top stroke and the diagonal descending stroke, making it look bold and heavy compared to a normal penny, but it's the 8 that truly steals the show. The doubling on this digit is so pronounced that the two loops of the number appear almost quadrupled in some areas, with secondary and tertiary images creating a complex, layered appearance that's absolutely mesmerizing. Collectors have described it as looking like the number was stamped 3 or even 4 times, each impression slightly offset from the others. Moving to Liberty running along the left edge of the coin, every single letter shows doubling that exceeds what we've seen on the previous coins we discussed. The L has its vertical and horizontal strokes clearly doubled with substantial separation. The I appears almost like two distinct letters sitting side by side with visible space between them. The B shows extraordinary doubling where both the vertical stem and the two rounded bowls appear with strong secondary images. The E displays doubling across all three horizontal strokes and the vertical spine. The R shows dramatic doubling in the vertical stem, the diagonal stroke, and the curved bowl. The T appears with a heavily doubled crossbar and vertical stroke creating a bold, thick appearance, and the Y shows pronounced doubling in both diagonal strokes that form the letter. The overall effect is that Liberty looks almost like it's vibrating or shimmering, like you're seeing it through a double vision lens. Then we have, In God We Trust, across the top of the coin, and this is where the 1978 double die truly separates itself from all other double die pennies. The doubling here is so extreme that the words appear almost to leap off the surface of the coin. IN shows each letter with massive doubling, the I and N both displaying clear secondary images with substantial separation. God is spectacular with the G showing doubling in its curves, the O appearing almost like two overlapping circles with clear separation at the top and bottom, and the D displaying strong doubling in both the vertical stem and the curved portion. We continues with dramatic doubling in both letters, and Trust completes the display with each of its 5 letters showing pronounced secondary images, the T appearing especially bold with its cross structure clearly doubled. Beyond the lettering and date, Lincoln's profile itself shows remarkable doubling in numerous areas. You can see it in the fine details of his hair, where individual strands appear doubled, in the contours of his face, particularly around his eye where the doubling creates an almost eerie effect, in his beard where the texture appears enhanced by the secondary strike, in the details of his bow tie and collar where the fabric folds show doubling, and along the edges of his coat where the outline appears bolder and more defined due to the doubled impression. Examining a high-grade 1978 double die penny is like looking at a masterpiece of unintentional art, an accident that created something more visually striking than many intentional designs. The story of how this incredible error came to exist takes us back to the die-making facilities at the United States Mint in 1978. During the die production process, a working die was struck multiple times by the master hub, creating the design that would then be used to strike thousands of actual pennies. Between hub impressions, something went catastrophically wrong with the alignment. The die shifted dramatically, much more than in typical double die errors, and when the hub struck the die again, it created this massive doubling across the entire obverse design. This should have been immediately obvious to anyone who looked at the die. The doubling was so pronounced that it couldn't possibly be missed, or so you would think. But somehow, incredibly, impossibly, this grossly doubled die made it through quality control. It was approved, installed in a coining press, and began striking pennies. Now there are theories about how this could have happened. Some numismatists believe that the die may have been examined at the end of a shift when inspectors were tired and less attentive. Others speculate that it might have been a new or inexperienced inspector who didn't fully understand what they were seeing. Some even suggest that the die might have been deliberately allowed into production by a mint employee who understood its potential value, though this theory ventures into speculation and has never been proven. Whatever the reason, the die went into service and started producing these extraordinary era coins. The best estimates suggest that somewhere between 500 and 3,000 of these 1978 double die pennies were struck before the era was discovered and the die was removed from service and destroyed. That might sound like a lot of coins, but when you consider that the mints produced over 5 billion pennies in 1978 alone, we're talking about a fraction so small it barely registers. We're looking at potentially one era coin for every 1 to 10 million normal pennies. Those are lottery ticket odds. Those are struck by lightning odds. Those are finding a specific grain of sand on a beach odds. And here's what makes the hunt so incredibly exciting. Those 500 to 3,000 era coins didn't stay at the mint, they didn't get caught and pulled from circulation, they were released, they mixed in with millions of regular pennies, they were shipped to banks, distributed to businesses, spent in stores, dropped in parking lots, saved in piggy banks, given as change, passed from hand to hand thousands of times, and somewhere out there, right now, at this very moment, there are 1978 doubled die pennies sitting in old jars, tucked away in forgotten coin collections, mixed in with rolls of pennies in bank vaults, maybe even still circulating in pocket change, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The value progression for this coin based on grade is absolutely mind-blowing. Even in the lowest collectible grades, we're talking about substantial money. A 1978 double die penny in good for condition, heavily worn from decades of circulation, would still be worth anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. That's for a coin that's been beaten up, scratched, corroded, and shows significant wear. Imagine that, a worn-out penny worth enough to buy a luxury car. As you move up the grading scale to fine 12 through very fine 35, where the coin shows moderate wear but all details are still visible, values range from $200,000 to $800,000, in extremely fine 40 through about uncirculated 58, where the coin shows minimal wear with most of the original luster still present, you're looking at values between $1 and $3 million, and that's before we even get to the uncirculated grades. In the mint state range, values absolutely explode. An MS-62 MS-62 example, which is uncirculated but shows numerous bag marks and may have somewhat muted luster, would be worth $3 to $5 million. An MS-63 to MS-64, which is choice uncirculated with nice eye appeal and moderate bag marks, ranges from $6 to $12 million. An MS-65 to MS-66, which is gem to premium gem quality with exceptional luster and minimal marks, commands $15 to $25 million. And an MS-67, which is superb gem quality representing near perfection, could reach $30 to $40 million, and in the theoretical MS-68 to MS-70 range, those absolutely flawless specimens that show no imperfections even under intense magnification, that's where you hit that $47 million valuation, because you're not just owning a coin at that point, you're owning a piece of minting history in the absolute finest condition possible, something that museums would fight to acquire, something that represents the pinnacle of era coin collecting. The authentication and grading process for a coin of this magnitude cannot be overstated in importance. If you believe you have found a 1978 double die penny, you are potentially holding enough wealth to retire, to change your entire life trajectory, and you absolutely must have it professionally authenticated. Do not trust your own eyes alone. Do not rely on advice from casual collectors or local dealers. Do not accept, "It looks real to me," as confirmation. Submit it to PCGS or NGC. Immediately, these services will examine it under high magnification, compare it to known authentic examples in their reference collections, verify that the doubling is genuine hub doubling and not machine doubling or post-mint damage, assign it an official grade based on its condition, and seal it in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number. And that certification is what will allow you to sell the coin for its full value when the time comes. The market for this coin is extremely strong and has been trending upward for decades. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Numismatics have handled sales of high-grade 1978 double die pennies, and each major auction seems to set new records. Collectors and investors compete fiercely for these coins, driving prices higher and higher, and the publicity surrounding each major sale brings new collectors into the hobby, people who see the headlines about a penny selling for millions of dollars and think, maybe I should check my old coins, and this creates a positive feedback loop that continues to strengthen the market. Now, how do you search for this ultimate treasure? First, you need access to 1978 pennies, and this is where persistence pays off. Buy rolls from banks, exchange paper money for coins, search through your own accumulated change, check inherited collections, purchase unsearched estate coin lots, Ask family members if they have old pennies you could examine. The 1978 pennies you're looking for could have either no mint mark, indicating they were struck in Philadelphia, or a D mint mark indicating Denver production. Double die varieties exist from both mints, though the most dramatic and valuable variety is typically the Philadelphia issue without a mint mark. When examining each 1978 penny, use strong magnification. At least 10x magnification is recommended, and 20x is even better if you have access to it. Look first at the date because the dramatic doubling in 1978, especially in that spectacular 8, is usually the first thing that catches the eye. If you see obvious, clear, spread apart doubling in the date, immediately examine Liberty letter by letter, then check In God We Trust word by word, then look at Lincoln's profile for doubling in the fine details. If all of these areas show strong, consistent doubling, if the entire obverse of the coin appears to have a doubled, shadowy quality to it, then your heart should start racing because you may have just found the discovery of a lifetime. It's important to understand that there are multiple double die varieties for 1978 pennies. Not all are worth millions. Some minor varieties show slight doubling in just one area and might be worth anywhere from $20 to $500 depending on the specific variety and grade. The major variety we've been discussing, the one worth millions, shows dramatic doubling across the entire obverse design, the date, all of Liberty, all of In God We Trust, and Lincoln's profile. It's unmistakable once you see it. There's no question, no uncertainty, it's obvious and spectacular. Be aware of counterfeits and altered coins. The 1978 double die is so valuable that it attracts counterfeiters. Fake versions do exist, ranging from crude reproductions that are easy to spot to sophisticated fakes that can fool inexperienced collectors. Additionally, there are genuine pennies that have been mechanically altered to simulate doubling through processes like striking the coin multiple times or using tools to add doubled appearance. Professional grading services have seen every type of fake and alteration and will immediately detect them, which is yet another reason why authentication is absolutely essential. The emotional impact of discovering a coin worth $47 million is almost impossible to imagine unless you've experienced it. There are documented stories of people who found valuable double die pennies and literally broke down crying, people who couldn't stop shaking for hours, people who couldn't sleep for days because they were so excited and nervous and overwhelmed, and this is completely understandable. Discovering that you're holding an object worth tens of millions of dollars, something that could solve every financial problem you've ever had, something that could provide for your family for generations, something that represents complete and total financial freedom, that kind of discovery changes you fundamentally as a person. And here's the beautiful part, this discovery is possible for anyone. You don't need to be wealthy, you don't need special connections, you don't need to buy expensive coins from dealers, you just need knowledge, which you now have from this video. You need access to 1978 pennies, which virtually everyone has, and you need the patience and diligence to examine them carefully. Every single 1978 penny you check is like buying a lottery ticket, except the odds are actually far better than most lotteries, and the ticket is free. Imagine what you would do with $47 million. Really take a moment to think about it. You could pay off every debt you have, buy your dream home outright with cash, purchase homes for your family members, travel the world in luxury, fund your children's or grandchildren's education completely, retire immediately, and never work another day unless you wanted to. Donate to causes you care about and make a real difference in the world. Invest enough to generate passive income that would support you and your descendants forever. You could literally rewrite your family's entire financial future with a single coin. The 1978 double die penny represents more than just money though. It represents hope, possibility, the idea that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places. It's proof that paying attention matters, that education and knowledge can unlock opportunities that others miss. It's a reminder that treasures still exist in the world, waiting to be discovered by people who know what to look for and have the dedication to search. So here's what I want you to do right now, today. As soon as you finish this video, go find every 1978 penny you can, check your change jar, search your old coin collections, go to the bank and get some rolls of pennies to search through, ask family members if they have old pennies, and examine every single 1978 penny you find. Look at the date with magnification, check for that dramatic doubling in 1978, especially in the 8, examine Liberty letter by letter, check In God We Trust, look at Lincoln's profile, and if you find dramatic, obvious doubling across all these areas, stop everything, protect that coin, handle it only by the edges, put it in a protective holder, and get it to PCGS or NGC for authentication as quickly as possible. And even if you don't find the $47,001,978 double die, remember that we've covered 3 other incredibly valuable pennies in this video: the 1987 D worth up to $38 million, the 1984 worth up to $29 million, and the 1996 D worth up to $22 million. Any one of these discoveries would be life-changing. And they're all out there, they're all findable, they're all waiting for someone with knowledge and dedication to discover them. The treasure hunt is real, the coins exist, the values are documented and verified, and now you have the knowledge you need to potentially change your life. So don't let this information just sit in your head. Take action, start searching, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to make headlines with an incredible rare penny discovery. Maybe your life is about to change in ways you never imagined possible. Maybe that fortune you've always dreamed of is already in your possession, hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to recognize it. This is why I love sharing this information. This is why education about rare coins matters so much, because it empowers regular people, everyday folks who aren't wealthy collectors or professional numismatists. It gives them the tools they need to potentially discover extraordinary wealth. And every single day, somewhere in America, someone finds a valuable coin they didn't know they had, and it changes their life, and there's absolutely no reason that person couldn't be you. So thank you for watching this incredibly detailed journey through 4 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever minted. Thank you for sticking with me through every detail, every explanation, every story. If this video has excited you, if it's inspired you to start searching, if it's given you hope that maybe, just maybe, you could find one of these treasures, then please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, The Coin Merchant, so you never miss future videos about valuable coins. And most importantly, go start searching through your pennies right now, because somewhere out there, a $47 million penny is waiting to be found, and it could be you who finds it. Happy hunting, and may your next penny be the one that changes everything.